The distance of stars and galaxies. Have you ever looked up into the stars above and listened to an astronomer telling you how far a star or a galaxy is located away from us? How do we measure such vast distances if we don't have the ability to go there and measure it with a yardstick or by ticking off miles inside of a rocket ship? The first astronomers used something called parallax. Astronomers would observe the same star from two different positions during Earth's orbit and calculated the shift in position against the distant background stars. But once you get out so far, the distance would be incalculable. So it wasn't able to measure distances beyond 400 light years. We were limited in our ability to measure great distances further than 400 light years. We could see them, but we didn't know how far away they were. This was a problem that astronomers in the 19th century were trying to solve. Edward Charles Pickering was an astronomer at Harvard College Observatory. He and his male buddies liked to hog all the time in the observatory, looking through the telescopes and using the equipment, but they did not really care for doing the calculations and the tedious study behind the scenes. So they hired computers. No, not these types of computers, and not these either, not even the ones that were the size of entire buildings. No, the very first computers were people who excelled at math. Humans able to do complicated math were the very first computers, not machines, smart people. But another issue was cost. A smart man was often paid a great deal of money for his work. But schools had limited budgets, so instead, Pickering hired smart women because even though their work was equal or better, women were paid less. This is Henrietta Swan Leavitt. And when she graduated, she was not even paid for her work. Instead, in order to get her foot into the door of astronomy, she offered to volunteer her work to Pickering for free. And Pickering loved that, so she became a computer. In the late 19th century, photography was in its infancy. There were no fancy phones or cameras like we use today. Instead, they covered glass plates with a thin film of chemicals, which was sensitive to light. They would set up the telescope for a specific star, set down the plate, and expose it to the light from the telescope, cover it, and process it. And this is the result. The chemicals would turn dark on the plate, leaving a negative image of the stars. And Leavitt and her fellow computers went through thousands of these plates, taken of the same stars over a period of time, and would note the changes in their brightness. Leavitt's law, also known as the period luminosity relation, is a significant astronomical principle discovered by Henrietta Swan Leavitt in 1912. This law establishes a direct correlation between the pulsation period of a classic Cepheid variable star and its intrinsic brightness. The pulsation period is the time it takes for a Cepheid to complete one cycle of brightness variation, and its intrinsic brightness is the actual luminosity of the star, independent of its distance from Earth. Leavitt found that the longer the pulsation period of a Cepheid, the brighter it is on average. This relationship allows astronomers to determine the distance to these stars based on their observed brightness. So now when people tell you the distance to stars in different galaxies, nebula, or clusters, you know who figured it out. A smart female astronomer working for Edward Pickering at Harvard, and her name was Henrietta Swan Leavitt.